Well, round 10 of Vodacom Super Rugby has finally concluded, and what an explosive round of results it was. Let's quickly recap what we've seen. It started off in the most exciting fashion ever with the Crusaders back home and up against a Chiefs side that we know is hard to beat, and they proved it on Friday with a wonderful away-from-win victory over the Crusaders. On Saturday morning, the action got underway pretty early on in the morning. The Hurricanes at home to the Waratahs, who'd gone down to the Stormers last weekend, but what a way for the Tars to bounce back after that loss, and they'll be quite happy with that. Significant moves for them in the Australian Conference. The Highlanders were then at home to the Blues, who found themselves trailing by 24 points to nil at half-time before clawing their way back into the match, and anything could have happened in the last 2-3 minutes of that match. And the Brumbies, they were probably the shock loss of the weekend, going down to the Melbourne Rebels, who've really battled on the road until this point. The Western Force then took on the Stormers, who are on their way back home en route via Perth, and finished off with a hard-fought win, perhaps a little harder than they would have anticipated. The Sharks then took on the Bulls, and it was the Bulls that emerged victorious in that all-South African derby, and then the Toyota Cheetahs with a heartbreaking 1-point loss to the Reds. As a result of that, the Reds are now off the foot of the overall conference table. But we start at the top, where the Hurricanes still have only suffered that one loss, which happened on this weekend on 33 points. The Bulls in second by virtue of now topping the South African Conference, and the Brumbies still top the Australian Conference with 26 points. The Stormers very close to the Bulls, and just 2 points separating them, and that's why they find themselves in at number 6, but still in the wildcard places. Just outside of that, it's the Waratahs, followed by the Lions, Sharks, Crusaders, Rebels, and the Cheetahs would have wanted to pick up more points against the Reds this weekend. And at the bottom is the Western Force, who suffered a loss yet again. So much to look forward to in round 11, and the action gets going on Friday morning at 9 o'clock. Tony Ndoro and the team will be in for that match between the Chiefs, who are back in the swing of things against the Western Force, who want to bounce back, and the Brumbies will then take on the Highlanders in the second match on Friday. On Saturday morning, Tony and the boys will be in from 9 o'clock as well, with the Crusaders back home against the Blues. The Waratahs take on the Melbourne Rebels, and myself, Nick, Nas and Ashwin will then take over for the last two matches, two local derbies between the Lions and Cheetahs and the Stormers and Bulls. I'll be back in early on Sunday morning with the B team, that's the breakfast team, and that will be for the match between the Reds and the Hurricanes to wrap up round 11 of Vodacom Super Rugby. Don't forget, you can catch Guba's Visa on Super Rugby on Mondays as the boys recap what's happened this weekend. I'll be back on Boots and All on Thursday night, and of course the weekend's rugby action gets cracking on Friday. Thanks very much for joining us, and that wraps up round 10.